Did Elvis Presley really record one of his most famous ballads in the dark? What happens when a global superstar starts laughing in the middle of a take and the producer keeps the tape rolling? How can a song recorded as a simple warm-up exercise end up on a #1 album? The story of Elvis Presley in the recording studio is often one of meticulous work, of take after take chasing a certain sound. But sometimes magic happened instantly. It came together in one perfect, unrepeatable moment. These are the stories of the songs that were born in a single breath, the one-take wonders that captured lightning in a bottle. Number 21. Why did a joke become a million seller? The master take of Are You Lonesome Tonight was recorded after 2 a.m. The only light in RCA's Studio B in Nashville came from the control room. Elvis requested the lights be turned off to set a mood. The backing vocal group, the Jordanaires, had a new member that day, Ray Walker, who was filling in for another singer. What if a mistake made a song more famous than perfection ever could? That's the story of Are You Lonesome Tonight? The session was on April 4th, 1960. It was Elvis's second recording session after leaving the Army. The pressure was on to prove he was still relevant. He was recording material for his first post-Army album, Elvis is Back. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, was pushing for him to record Are You Lonesome Tonight? It was a personal favorite of the Colonel's wife, Marie. Elvis wasn't sold on the idea. It was an old song first published in 1926. It sounded dated to him, a relic from another era. But to please the Colonel, he agreed to try it. The session took place at RCA Victor Studio B in Nashville. The time was around 2 a.m. Elvis, a night owl, was just hitting his stride. The musicians were the best in Nashville guitarist Scotty Moore, drummer DJ Fontana, bassist Bob Moore, pianist Floyd Kramer, and guitarist Hank Garland. The Jordanaires were there for the backing vocals. Elvis wanted a specific atmosphere for this old, sentimental ballad. He told the engineer, Bill Porter, to kill the main studio lights. He wanted it to be dark, intimate. The only illumination came from a small lamp on the piano and the glow from the control room window. They ran through the song a couple of times to get the arrangement right. Then it was time to record. The tape rolled. Take 1 was a false start. He messed up the lyrics. Take 2 was a complete performance. You know, it was good. It was technically solid, but Elvis felt it lacked something. He wanted to try it again. The third take was another breakdown. Then came the next complete attempt, logged as take 4. The opening was fragile. Elvis's voice was close mic'd, capturing every bit of breath and emotion. The band was perfect. Floyd Kramer's piano was understated. The Jordanaires provided a soft cushion of sound. They got to the spoken word bridge. I wonder if you're lonesome tonight? Elvis delivered the lines with a quiet, dramatic flair. Then, just as the song was supposed to swell back into music, something happened. As he finished the spoken part, he turned away from his microphone. In the near darkness, he bumped his head on the mic stand just as one of the Jordanaires, Ray Walker, was singing his final bass note, A Low Tonight. The resulting thump sound echoed in the quiet studio. Elvis looked over at Walker and grinned. He tried to hold it together, but a chuckle escaped. He finished the song, but the magic was slightly broken for him. He came into the control room to listen. He heard the performance, the thump, and his own stifled laugh. That's it. That's the one, said producer Steve Scholes. And Elvis was not so sure. No, listen to me, he said. I was laughing. It's no good. Chet Atkins, also in the studio, agreed with Scholes. They argued that the vulnerability, the slight imperfection, made it real. It sounded like a man genuinely struggling with the words, so much so that he could barely get them out. Against his better judgment, Elvis relented. Okay, if you say so, he said, but I think you're making a mistake. They tried one more take. It was technically perfect. There were no bumps, no laughs, but the feeling was gone. Everyone in the control room knew it. The version with the laugh, the so-called lawing version, was the one. They spliced the clean ending from the final take onto the body of the laughing take to create the master. The single was released in November 1960. It went straight to #1 in the United States and the United Kingdom. You know, it sold millions of copies. Like, the mistake, the human moment that Elvis wanted to erase became one of the most beloved parts of the recording. It made the song feel personal and real, not just a performance. It was a perfect accident. Number 20. How did a spiritual song get recorded in a living room? The song In My Father's House, Are Many Mansions was recorded in a makeshift studio set up in Elvis's living room at his home in Bel Air, California. The session was captured on a simple 3-track recorder, a far cry from the professional equipment at RCA Studios. Elvis sang the lead vocal and played piano on the track simultaneously, something he rarely did on his official recordings. Sometimes the most sincere music is made away from the pressure of a real studio. In September 1960, Elvis was in a strange place. He was a movie star. He was living in a mansion in Bel Air, filming Wild in the Country, but he missed the music. He especially missed the gospel music he grew up with. The structured, timed-out sessions for movie soundtracks felt hollow. He needed to sing for himself, so he decided to turn his living room into a recording studio for a night. He called up some of his friends and a few members of the Jordanaires who were in town. He had RCA send over a mobile recording unit. It wasn't fancy. Engineer Thorne Nogar set up a 3-track machine right there in the house. Microphones were placed around the living room. There was no soundproofing, no isolation booths. It was just a group of guys singing in a room. The session was on October 30th, 1960. The goal was to record a gospel album, which would become His Hand in Mine. The atmosphere was completely different from a Nashville or Hollywood session. It was relaxed. Elvis was in charge. He picked the songs. He set the tempo. He played the piano. He wasn't just the singer. He was the musical director. They started with His Hand in Mine. Then they moved on to other gospel standards. One of them was In My Father's House, a song written by Aileen Hanks. It was a simple song with a powerful message. Elvis sat at the piano. He started playing the chords, feeling his way through the song. The Jordanaires gathered around him. He wasn't reading music. He was playing by ear, by heart. He started to sing. His voice was raw, unpolished. You could hear the sound of the piano keys under his fingers. You could hear the room itself. It was a pure performance, driven by faith and a love for the music. They did it in one take. There was no need for a second. The feeling was there. It was honest. It captured the spirit of the evening. When they finished, there was a quiet moment. They all knew they had captured something special. It wasn't technically perfect in the way a studio recording would be. You could hear slight imperfections, the natural echo of the room. But that was its strength. It was real. The recording was so pure that RCA decided to use it as it was. They didn't overdub it. They didn't try to clean it up too much. It became a key track on the His Hand in Mine album. The album was a huge success, winning a Grammy Award. And that one take, recorded in a living room in Bel Air, showed a side of Elvis that the world rarely saw. It was not Elvis the superstar. It was Elvis the church singer, the boy from Tupelo, Mississippi, connecting with the music that formed his soul. He wasn't performing for $1 million contract. He was singing for his own salvation. Number 19, could one song launch a whole new sound? The recording of Heartbreak Hotel was Elvis's first session for a major label, RCA Victor. The song's co-writer, Mae Boren Axton, was a public relations professional, not a professional songwriter. The sparse, eerie sound was created by an unusual studio setup, with Elvis's voice drenched in echo to mimic the sound of his Sun Records recordings. What does it take to change music forever? On January 10th, 1956, a 21-year-old Elvis Presley walked into RCA's McGavock Street studio in Nashville. It was a world away from the small, intimate Sun studio in Memphis where he had started. This was the big time. RCA had just paid an unprecedented $40,000 to buy his contract from Sam Phillips. The executives were nervous. Had they made a huge mistake on this raw, unproven kid? Elvis brought a new song with him. It was called Heartbreak Hotel. He had co-written it with a woman named Mae Boren Axton and a man named Tommy Durden. The inspiration came from a newspaper article about a man who had destroyed all his identity papers and jumped from a hotel window, leaving a note that said, "I walk a lonely street." The song was dark. It was bluesy. It wasn't the kind of upbeat rock and roll RCA was expecting. The studio musicians, led by guitarist Chet Atkins, were Nashville pros. They were used to playing clean, precise country music. They looked at the chord chart for Heartbreak Hotel and were confused. It was a simple blues progression, but it felt alien to them. Elvis tried to explain the feel he wanted. He wanted it to be stark, empty, and haunting. The band was his road band Scotty Moore on guitar, Bill Black on stand-up bass, and DJ Fontana on drums. Floyd Kramer was on piano. They started to play. Elvis sang with a passion and intensity that startled the seasoned session players. His voice was full of a dark, brooding energy. He wasn't just singing the words, he was living them. The key to the sound came from the engineer Bob Ferris. RCA wanted to recreate the famous slapback echo that Sam Phillips had perfected at Sun. But this Nashville studio wasn't set up for that. Ferris improvised. He placed a speaker at one end of a long, empty hallway and a microphone at the other. He fed Elvis's vocal track through the speaker, and the microphone picked up the natural reverberation of the hall. The result was a ghostly, cavernous echo that surrounded Elvis's voice. They did one take. That was it. When the song finished, there was a moment of silence in the control room. The RCA executives were horrified. This was not the commercial pop song they had paid for. It was weird. It was morbid. The lyrics were about a lonely, broken place at the end of a lonely street. The sound was swampy and strange. One executive famously said, "That's the most morbid song I've ever heard. It'll be the end of his career." But Elvis knew. The band knew they had captured something unique. Despite the label's fears, Heartbreak Hotel was released as his first RCA single. You know, it was a smash hit. It went to #1 on the Billboard charts and sold over 1 million copies. It was the song that introduced Elvis Presley to the world. And that one strange, haunting take, recorded against the wishes of the record label, didn't end his career. It started a revolution. It proved that a dark, raw, and honest song could be a commercial success. It changed the sound of popular music. Number 18, What If a Warm-Up Became the Master Take? The gospel song, Working on the Building, was recorded spontaneously during a session for the His Hand in Mine album. It was not on the original list of songs to be recorded. Elvis started singing it to warm up his voice and get the band in the groove, and the producer told the engineer to start recording without telling the musicians. Sometimes the best performances are the ones that aren't planned. On October 31st, 1960, Elvis was back at RCA Studio B in Nashville. He was continuing the work on his gospel album. The session was professional, structured. They had a list of songs to get through. The musicians were in place, the microphones were set, but Elvis needed to warm up. He needed to find the right energy. Instead of running through scales, he started singing an old gospel standard, Working on the Building. It was a fast-paced call and response song that he had sung in church as a boy. It was pure energy. He stomped his foot, clapped his hands. The band, including the Jordanaires, instinctively joined in. Scotty Moore started playing a driving guitar riff. DJ Fontana kicked in with a powerful backbeat. The Jordanaires shouted back the responses to Elvis's calls. In the control room, producer Steve Scholes and engineer Bill Porter looked at each other. This was not on the schedule. This was just a jam session. But it was electric. The energy coming through the speakers was undeniable. And Scholes gave Porter a quiet nod. "Roll the tape," he whispered. Porter hit the record button. The musicians in the studio had no idea they were being recorded. They thought they were just having fun loosening up before the real work began. Elvis was completely lost in the music. His voice was raw and powerful. He was improvising, ad-libbing, pushing the band faster and faster. The performance was ragged, loose, and full of joy. It was the sound of people making music for the sheer love of it. There were no inhibitions, no pressure. It was just pure, unadulterated gospel fervor. The song came to a crashing halt. The musicians were laughing, catching their breath. They were ready to start the real session. Elvis walked into the control room for a cup of coffee. "Okay, what's first on the list?" he asked. Steve Scholes smiled. "We already got it," he said. "Let me play you something." He rewound the tape and pressed play. The sound of Working on the Building filled the room. Elvis was stunned. He had no idea they had been recording. He listened to the raw energy, the spontaneous joy. It was messy. It was imperfect. but it was alive. It was more exciting than anything they could have planned. He loved it. That one take, Unplanned Warm-Up Jam, became a highlight of the His Hand in Mine album. It captured a moment of pure, unfiltered musical expression. It was a testament to the idea that sometimes the best art is created when you don't even know you're creating it. Number 17, How Fast Can You Record a #1 Hit? Elvis recorded a Big Hunk o' Love in the middle of the night during a 3-day recording session while he was on leave from the army. The entire song, a driving rock and roll number, was completed in a single explosive take. The powerful piano playing on the track was by Elvis himself, a fact often overlooked. Pressure can do strange things. In June 1958, Elvis Presley was a private in the United States Army, stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. He was about to be shipped off to Germany. RCA was panicking. Their biggest star was going to be out of the public eye for nearly 2 years. They needed enough material to release singles and keep his career alive while he was gone. They arranged a final recording session in Nashville during a short leave. Elvis had 3 days. The pressure was immense. The session took place at RCA Studio B. The night of June 10th was dedicated to finding some hits. They had been working for hours. It was late. The energy was starting to flag. They needed something to kick things into high gear. Someone brought in a song called A Big Hunk o' Love, written by Aaron Schroeder and Sid Weich. It was a fast-pounding rocker. It was exactly what they needed. Elvis took charge. He sat down at the piano and started pounding out the rhythm. His piano playing was not technically sophisticated, but it was powerful. It was all about rhythm and energy. He showed the band what he wanted. Hank Garland on guitar, Bob Moore on bass, and DJ Fontana on drums picked it up instantly. The legendary saxophonist Boots Randolph was also on the session. The mood in the studio shifted. This wasn't work anymore. This was fun. Elvis stood up from the piano, grabbed the microphone, and counted it off. 1, 2, 3, 4. The band exploded into the song. Elvis's voice was a primal scream. He was letting out all the frustration and energy of his army life. He attacked the lyrics, shouting and pleading. The band was right there with him, matching his intensity every step of the way. Hank Garland played a blistering guitar solo. Boots Randolph's sax wailed. It was chaos. It was rock and roll. And it was over in 2 minutes and 12 seconds. One take. That's all it took. They listened back in the control room. It was lightning. It was raw, untamed energy, captured on tape. There was no point in doing another take. They could never recapture that spontaneous explosion. They knew they had a hit. A Big Hunk o' Love was released a year later, in June 1959, while Elvis was still in Germany. It shot to #1 on the charts. It was a reminder to the world that even in an army uniform, Elvis Presley was still the king of rock and roll. That one take, recorded in the middle of the night under intense pressure, was a blast of pure energy that kept his flame burning brightly while he was half a world away. It was a statement. He wasn't gone. He was just waiting. Number 16, Could a Song's Meaning Change in a Single Take? The song One Night was originally written with the lyric, One Night of Sin is what I'm now paying for. Elvis recorded this version in 1957, but RCA deemed it too suggestive to release. He later re-recorded it with the cleaned up lyric, One Night with You is what I'm now praying for. However, the original, raw, one-take version from the 1957 session is considered by many to be the definitive performance. Sometimes a record company's fear creates an underground legend. In February 1957, Elvis was at Radio Recorders in Hollywood. He was at the peak of his powers, the most controversial and exciting performer in the world. He was recording songs for his Loving You album and for singles. The songwriter team of Dave Bartholomew and Pearl King had a song called One Night of Sin. It was a slow, grinding blues number. The lyrics were explicit for the time. It was a song about regret and desire. Elvis loved it. It was real. It was adult. It was dangerous. He went into the studio on February 23rd to record it. The band was his usual crew: Scotty Moore, Bill Black, DJ Fontana. The Jordanaires were on backing vocals. The lights were low. Elvis took the microphone and started to sing. The performance was breathtaking. It was one take. His voice was thick with emotion. He wasn't just singing the words, he was confessing them. The way he sang One Night of Sin was a mix of defiance and shame. The band played a deep, swampy rhythm behind him. It was a raw, powerful, and deeply sensual performance. When it was over, everyone knew they had captured something special. But the executives at RCA were terrified. The word sin was too much. They believed radio stations would ban it. They told Elvis it was unreleasable. Elvis was disappointed, but he was under contract. The master take was shelved. It was put in a vault, seemingly destined to be forgotten. A year later, in 1958, during the A Big Hunk O' Love sessions in Nashville, Elvis decided to try the song again. This time he agreed to change the lyrics. One night of sin became one night with you. Is what I'm now paying for became is what I'm now praying for. The meaning of the song was completely altered. It went from a song of regret to a song of longing. The new version was good. It was a hit, but it lacked the dangerous edge of the original. For years, the legend of the Sin version grew among fans. It was a mythical, forbidden recording. Finally, in the 1980s, RCA released it on a rarities compilation. Hearing it for the first time was a revelation. That one take from 1957 was a glimpse into the artist Elvis wanted to be. He wanted to sing about real adult emotions. He wanted to push boundaries. The one-take Sin version of One Night is a perfect example of his raw talent and his blues roots. It's a snapshot of a moment when his artistry was too powerful for the commercial constraints of his time. Number 15, Why Would a Star Record a B-side with Such Passion? Trying to Get to You, one of Elvis's most powerful early vocal performances, was recorded in a single take at Sun Studio. It was originally released as the B-side to I Love You Because. Sam Phillips, Sun's owner, considered the vocal on this track to be one of the most honest and emotional he ever recorded. What makes a B-side more powerful than an A-side? On July 11th, 1955, Elvis was back at Sun Studio, 706 Union Avenue in Memphis. He was still a regional star, not yet a national phenomenon. These sessions were about experimentation, about finding a sound. Sam Phillips was at the controls, pushing Elvis to dig deep to find something real. They had been trying to record a ballad called I Love You Because, but it wasn't working. It felt stiff, forced. Elvis was getting frustrated. To blow off some steam, he started jamming on a rhythm and blues song he liked, Trying to Get to You, originally recorded by the group The Eagles. It was a song of desperation and determination. Sam Phillips heard the change in energy immediately. He told the band, Scotty Moore and Bill Black, to just follow Elvis. He hit the record button. What happened next was pure magic. And Elvis launched into the song with a force that was shocking. His voice soared. He hit high notes with a clarity and power he hadn't shown before. He was pleading, begging, crying through the lyrics. I've been traveling over mountains, even through the valleys too. I've been traveling night and day. I've been running all the way, baby, trying to get to you. It was a performance of raw, unbridled emotion. You could hear the ambition, the hunger, the desire in his voice. This wasn't just about a girl. This was about breaking out, about making it. This was the sound of a young man from a poor background trying to get to the world. It was one take. There was no discussion about doing another. It was perfect. It was a force of nature. Sam Phillips knew he had just captured one of the greatest vocal performances of the era. The problem was he didn't see it as a single. You know, it was too raw, too intense for the radio in 1955. He decided to put it on the B side of the more conventional ballad, I Love You Because. Over the years, Trying to Get to You has become a fan favorite and a critic's choice. It's a perfect example of the Sun Records sound. It is Elvis at his most primal and his most vocally gifted. That one take, born out of frustration and used as a throwaway B-side, ended up being a more enduring and powerful statement than the song it was meant to support. It's a lesson in how true artistry can't be hidden, even on the flip side of a record. Number 14, How Did an Experiment Create a Classic? The slow, bluesy version of I'm Left, You're Right, She's Gone was an accident. It was recorded in a single take during a Sun session as the band was trying to work out the arrangement for the faster rockabilly version that was eventually released. Sam Phillips kept the tape rolling, capturing a unique atmospheric performance that was unreleased for decades. Mistakes are not always mistakes. Sometimes they are discoveries. In March 1955, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill were at Sun Studio. They had a new song written by Stan Kesler, I'm Left, You Right, She's Gone. They were trying to figure out how to play it. Sam Phillips was looking for another upbeat rockabilly hit like That's All Right. They started playing the song slowly. It was a ballad, a sad, mournful country blues tune. Bill Black was slapping his bass in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Scotty Moore was playing sparse, bluesy guitar licks. Elvis was singing in a low, melancholic voice. They were just feeling their way through the chords, exploring the melody. They weren't trying to record a master take. They were rehearsing. Sam Phillips in the control room recognized that something special was happening. The mood was thick. The sound was swampy and dark. It was completely different from anything they had done before. He made sure the tape was rolling. He didn't say a word. He just let them play. They went through the entire song in this slow, brooding tempo. Elvis's vocal was full of pain and heartbreak. It was a ghostly, haunting performance. When they finished, they stopped. Okay, that's not it, someone probably said. Then they worked up the faster, more commercial version. They sped up the tempo, added a driving beat, and turned it into the rockabilly song that was eventually released as a single. But Sam Phillips kept the tape of that first slow take. He labeled it I'm Left, You're Right, She's Gone slow version. He knew it was too strange, too uncommercial to release in 1955, but he also knew it was a piece of art. He put it away in the Sun archives. For 20 years, that recording was a secret. It wasn't until the 1970s that it was finally released. When fans and critics heard it, they were stunned. It was a revelation. It showed a side of the young Elvis that was deep, dark, and incredibly soulful. It was a glimpse into a different path he could have taken, a path of pure, unadulterated blues. That one-take experiment, that happy accident, is now considered by many to be one of his greatest and most atmospheric Sun recordings. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the journey to the final product is more interesting than the product itself. Number 13, can a song be both a hit and a joke? The song Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear was recorded in a single take during the sessions for the movie Loving You. The atmosphere in the studio was reportedly light and playful, with Elvis and the band treating the simple novelty song as a bit of fun rather than a serious artistic effort. The Jordanaires' bass singer, Gordon Stoker, provided the tick-tock vocal effect. Not every hit has to be a profound statement. Sometimes fun is enough. It was January 1957, and Elvis was at Paramount Scoring Stage in Hollywood. He was recording the soundtrack for his second film, Loving You. The pressure was off. These weren't singles for RCA, they were songs for a movie. The schedule was tight, and the goal was to get usable takes as quickly as possible. One of the songs on the list was Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear. It was written by Cal Mann and Bernie Lowe, professional songwriters who knew how to craft a simple, catchy pop tune. The song was light, fluffy, and a little bit silly. It was a novelty song designed to appeal to Elvis's teenage fans. And Elvis and the band didn't take it too seriously. They ran through it a couple of times to get the structure down. The mood was loose. Everyone was joking around. Gordon Stoker, the Jordanaires, came up with the idea of doing a tick-tock sound with his voice to sound like a clock. It was a funny, quirky touch. They rolled the tape for the first and only time. Elvis sang the song with a playful charm. He wasn't digging deep for dark emotions. He was having a good time. His vocal has a smile in it. The band played a simple, clean, rock and roll rhythm. It was tight, professional, but also relaxed. Scotty Moore's guitar solo was short and to the point. The whole thing was over in less than 2 minutes. They listened to the playback. It was perfect for what it was. A fun, catchy, commercial pop song. There was no need to do it again. It was a one-take wonder born not of intense artistic passion, but of professional efficiency and a good mood. RCA, however, knew a hit when they heard one. They decided to release Teddy Bear as a single. It went to number 1 for 7 weeks. It became one of Elvis's most recognizable songs. It was a commercial juggernaut, and it was all captured in one take on a Hollywood soundstage by a group of musicians who were probably thinking more about what they were going to have for lunch than about making a timeless classic. It proves that sometimes the simplest things done quickly and without overthinking can be the most successful. Number 12. How do you capture lightning in a jail cell? The title track for the movie Jailhouse Rock was recorded in a single explosive take at radio recorders in Hollywood. The writers, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, were famously locked in their hotel room by their publisher until they finished the songs for the movie. Elvis sang with such force that he was literally shouting the lyrics by the end of the take. Sometimes anger is the best fuel for rock and roll. In the spring of 1957, the songwriting duo of Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller were summoned to New York. They were the hottest writers in rock and roll, having penned Hound Dog and Love Me. Their publisher, Gene Aberbach, told them they were going to write the entire score for Elvis's new movie, Jailhouse Rock. Lieber and Stoller, who saw themselves as serious R&B writers, were not thrilled about writing for a movie. They procrastinated. Aberbach got tired of waiting. He went to their hotel room, pushed a sofa in front of the door, and said, "You are not leaving this room until you finish those songs." Trapped, Lieber and Stoller got to work. In about 5 hours, they wrote 4 songs, including the title track. They imagined a wild, surreal prison scene. The warden threw a party in the county jail. It was brilliant, funny, and full of great imagery. The recording session was at Radio Recorders in Hollywood on April 30th, 1957. Elvis had the demo. He loved the song's energy and attitude. The band was his usual touring group, plus pianist Dudley Brooks. The atmosphere in the studio was electric. Lieber and Stoller were there, which was unusual. They rarely attended Elvis's sessions. They ran through the song while Elvis was feeding off the rebellious energy of the lyrics. He was pacing the studio like a caged animal. When it was time to record, he was ready to explode. The tape rolled. DJ Fontana kicked off with a drum beat that sounded like a hammer hitting an anvil. The band crashed in. Elvis attacked the song. His voice was a snarl. He wasn't singing, he was testifying. He was spitting out the words with a raw, aggressive energy. The performance was pure punk rock, years before the term was invented. As the song built, his voice got louder and more frantic. By the final verse, he was screaming, "Let's rock. Everybody, let's rock." It was one take. Absolute mayhem captured on tape. When it was over, everyone was breathless. Lieber and Stoller were amazed. He had taken their song and made it his own, injecting it with a level of raw power they hadn't even imagined. There was no way to top it. Any other attempt would have sounded tame. Jailhouse Rock became a #1 hit around the world. The song and the accompanying dance sequence in the film became iconic, and it all came from one take, fueled by the frustration of 2 locked-in songwriters and the untamable energy of a singer who was at the absolute peak of his rebellious power. Number 11. Can a song be too simple to need a second take? All Shook Up was recorded by Elvis in a single take after he came up with the title phrase himself. Songwriter Otis Blackwell, who had written Don't Be Cruel, was contacted and asked to write a song around the phrase. He wrote the entire song in a day and brought it to the studio, where Elvis and the band recorded the master on the very first try. Sometimes a great idea is all you need. In the winter of 1957, Elvis was on top of the world. He was looking for his next hit. One night, he woke up from a dream, shaking. He called a friend and said, "Man, I'm all shook up." He liked the sound of the phrase. He thought it would make a great song title. He contacted Otis Blackwell, the brilliant songwriter who had given him the monster hit, Don't Be Cruel. Elvis told him the title, All Shook Up. Blackwell, a master of catchy rock and roll, loved it. He reportedly went home and wrote the entire song in a matter of hours, building a narrative around the feeling of being dizzy and confused by love. The recording session was on January 12th, 1957, at Radio Recorders in Hollywood. Blackwell brought the song in. Elvis loved it immediately. It was simple, catchy, and had a great rhythm. The band learned it quickly. The arrangement was straightforward. A driving beat, a simple bass line, and Elvis's voice front and center. They did one rehearsal to get the feel right, then the engineer rolled the tape. Elvis sang it with a loose, joyful energy. His voice hiccups and quivers, perfectly matching the all shook up feeling of the lyrics. The Jordanaires provided the tight, rhythmic backing vocals. The whole thing was effortless. It was the sound of professionals having a good time. One take. That's all they needed. It was so simple and so perfect that there was no reason to do another one. It captured the exact feeling they were going for. It was a piece of perfect pop craftsmanship. Elvis was so pleased with the result that he gave Otis Blackwell a co-writing credit, even though Elvis had only provided the title. It was a gesture of respect and a smart business move. All Shook Up was released and became a massive international hit, topping the charts in both the US and the UK. It was another smash that came together in an instant. A great title, a great writer, and a great performer coming together for one perfect, simple, unrepeatable take. Number 10, What Happens When You Strip a Song to Its Bones. The version of I'll Be Home on Christmas Day that appears on the 1971 album Elvis Sings the Wonderful World of Christmas was a spontaneous one-take performance. Dissatisfied with the more polished master take they had already recorded, Elvis asked the band to play a slow, bluesy version. The resulting recording is raw, emotional, and features one of his most pained and soulful vocals. Sometimes the real take happens after the official one is done. In May 1971, Elvis was at RCA Studio B in Nashville recording a new Christmas album. The sessions were long and sometimes frustrating. He was recording a lot of standard holiday fare. On May 16th, they worked on a song called I'll Be Home on Christmas Day. The official arrangement was upbeat, with a full band and backing vocalists. They did several takes and got a polished, professional-sounding master. But Elvis wasn't happy. The song was about a man who was separated from his family at Christmas, promising to return. The upbeat version didn't match the sadness of the lyrics. After they had the master in the can, Elvis turned to his band. Let's try it again, he said. Just, slow, real bluesy. The producer, Felton Jarvis, kept the tape rolling, perhaps just to humor him. The band stripped it all down. James Burton played a swampy, mournful guitar line. The rhythm section laid down a slow, heavy groove. There were no backing vocals, no sweetening. It was just Elvis and the core band. Elvis started to sing, and the mood in the studio changed completely. This wasn't a performance anymore. It was a confession. His voice was raw with pain and longing. He stretched out the notes, pouring every ounce of feeling into the lyrics. You could hear the ache in his voice, the sound of a man who genuinely felt isolated and alone. He ad-libbed, moaned, and pleaded his way through the song. It was a masterful, tortured blues performance. It was one take. When he finished, there was a stunned silence. They had just witnessed something incredible. This version was everything the polished master was not. It was real, it was raw, and it was heartbreaking. Felton Jarvis knew he had captured something special. He decided to include this spontaneous bluesy version on the album instead of the originally planned master take. It stands out on the album as a moment of pure, unfiltered emotion. It's a dark, brooding masterpiece hidden on a Christmas record. That one take, done after the work was supposedly finished, became the definitive version and one of the most powerful vocal performances of the final phase of his career. Number 9, can you record a gospel standard in under a minute? The song Swing Down Sweet Chariot from the His Hand in Mine album was recorded in a single, lightning-fast take that clocks in at just under 2.5 minutes. It was part of the same relaxed, informal sessions that produced other one-take gospel wonders, driven by Elvis's passion for the music and the tight-knit harmony of the Jordanaires. Sometimes when you know a song by heart, it just flows out of you. The October 1960 sessions for the His Hand in Mine album were a spiritual homecoming for Elvis. He was choosing the songs, leading the arrangements, and singing with a passion that was often missing from his movie soundtrack work. He was in his element. Swing Down Sweet Chariot was a gospel standard he had known his whole life. It was a jubilant, up-tempo song, a call for salvation. Elvis and the Jordanaires didn't need a lot of rehearsal for a song like this. It was in their blood. On October 31st, at RCA Studio B, they decided to cut it. Elvis counted it off, and they launched into it with an infectious energy. It was a perfect blend of voices. Elvis's powerful lead soaring over the intricate four-part harmony of the Jordanaires. The rhythm was driven by hand claps and a simple stomping beat. The performance was tight and joyful. It was the sound of a group of singers who had been performing together for years, anticipating each other's every move. They moved through the verses and choruses with a practiced ease that came from hundreds of hours of informal singing, both on and off stage. It was one take. The energy was perfect. The harmonies were locked in. The feeling was pure joy. There was nothing to fix, nothing to improve. They had captured the spirit of the song in one brief, exhilarating burst. At 2 minutes and 32 seconds, it's a short, powerful piece of music. The result is one of the highlights of the Grammy-winning album. It's a perfect example of how Elvis's deep knowledge and love of gospel music allowed him to create timeless recordings with an almost effortless grace. When the music was this close to his heart, he didn't need multiple takes to get it right. He just had to open his mouth and let it out. Number 8, what does a king sound like when he's scared? Blue Suede Shoes was not an Elvis original. It was a huge hit for Carl Perkins. After Perkins was in a serious car accident, RCA rushed Elvis into the studio to record a cover version to capitalize on the song's popularity. Elvis was reportedly reluctant to record it, feeling it was Carl's song, and he knocked out his version in a single professional take to get it over with. How do you cover a friend's hit song? In early 1956, Blue Suede Shoes was everywhere. The song, written and recorded by Sun Records artist Carl Perkins, was a monster hit, climbing the pop, country, and R&B charts simultaneously. It was the definitive rockabilly anthem. Elvis loved the song and was a friend of Perkins. Then, tragedy struck. On his way to a national television appearance that would have made him a superstar, Carl Perkins was in a horrific car accident. He was seriously injured and unable to promote his record. The song's momentum stalled. RCA saw a business opportunity. Their new star, Elvis Presley, was also a Sun Records graduate. They decided he should record Blue Suede Shoes immediately to keep the song on the charts. And Elvis was not happy about it. He felt like he was stealing his friend's thunder. I don't want to do it, he told the producers. It's Carl's song. But the label insisted. It was a commercial decision, not an artistic one. So, on January 30th, 1956, during his first RCA sessions in New York, Elvis agreed to record the song. He wanted to get it over with as quickly as possible. The band launched into the familiar intro. Elvis sang it with a professional fire, but it was different from Perkins's version. Perkins's original was lean and edgy. Elvis's version was bigger, louder, more explosive. It was less a threat and more a celebration. He nailed it in one take. It was a perfect, powerful rock and roll performance. But his heart wasn't really in it. He did it because he had to. He knew it would seem like he was taking advantage of it. He even reportedly told people, when you buy my record, just tell them it's Carl's song. RCA released Elvis's version, and it became a hit. But it never surpassed the popularity of Carl Perkins's original. For Elvis, it was always a complicated song. His one-take performance was a testament to his professionalism. He could walk into a studio and deliver a killer track on demand, even when he didn't want to. But it was also a sign of the new pressures he was under at a major label where business often came before friendship. Number 7, how can a song be both fierce and forgotten? I Need Your Love Tonight, a driving rocker from 1958, was recorded in a single, powerful take during the same pre-Army session that produced A Big Hunk O' Love. Despite its quality and being released as a double-A side, it is often overshadowed by its more famous session mate and the ballad on its flip side, Now and Then There's a Fool, Such As I. Can a great rock and roll song get lost in the shuffle? The Pressure Cooker sessions in Nashville in June 1958 were all about banking hits before Elvis shipped out to Germany. On the night of June 10th, the same night they cut the explosive Big Hunk O' Love, they also tackled another rocker, I Need Your Love Tonight. The song was written by Sid Wayne and Bix Reichner. It was a classic piece of 1950s rock and roll, full of teenage longing and energetic boasts. It was the kind of song Elvis could sing in his sleep, but he didn't sleepwalk through it. Just like with A Big Hunk O' Love, the energy in the studio was high. The band was locked in. Elvis, filled with the nervous energy of his impending departure, was singing with a raw, desperate edge. He attacked the lyrics, his voice full of swagger and confidence. The Jordanaires provided the pumping, rhythmic backing vocals that pushed the song forward. The band was on fire. Hank Garland's guitar was sharp and punchy. DJ Fontana's drumming was a relentless assault. It was a textbook example of a great rock and roll band firing on all cylinders. They blasted through it in one take. It was tight, it was powerful, and it was exciting. There was no need to do it again. They had it. In the control room, it was clear they had another hit on their hands. The song was released in March 1959. It was a double A side single paired with the ballad Now and Then There's a Fool, such as the ballad got most of the airplay, and I Need Your Love Tonight became a slightly lesser known hit, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard chart. It was a huge success by any normal standard, but in the world of Elvis, it was often overlooked. Listening to it today, that one-take performance is a blast of pure energy. It's a perfect snapshot of Elvis, the rocker, at the peak of his 1950s powers, just before the Army and Hollywood changed his sound forever. It's a forgotten one-take wonder, a testament to a night when a great band and a great singer were making magic with every song they touched. Number 6, Can You Find God in a Single Take? Joshua Fit the Battle, the classic spiritual, was recorded in a single, joyful take for the His Hand in Mine album. The arrangement is pure energy, with Elvis and the Jordanaires trading vocals in a rapid-fire call and response, creating a sense of communal celebration that was captured perfectly on the first and only attempt. How do you capture the sound of a church revival on a piece of vinyl? On October 31st, 1960, during the Nashville sessions for his first gospel album, Elvis wanted to record Joshua Fit the Battle of Jericho. It was a song he knew from his childhood, a story of faith and triumph. He didn't want it to be a slow, reverent hymn. He wanted it to be a celebration. He gathered the Jordanaires and the band around him. He explained the feel he was going for, fast, rhythmic, and full of joy. He wanted it to sound like a jubilee. The arrangement was built on a call and response pattern between Elvis and the backing vocalists, their voices weaving in and out of each other. The tape rolled. Elvis started with the famous line, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the Jordanaires responded with a staccato, Jericho, Jericho. The energy built immediately. It was a whirlwind of voices, hand claps, and driving rhythm. Elvis was in his element, his voice full of power and conviction. He was not just a singer, he was a preacher leading his congregation. The performance was a marvel of timing and vocal dexterity. The interplay between Elvis and the Jordanaires was incredibly tight, a testament to their years of singing together. They were finishing each other's phrases, building a wall of sound that was both complex and incredibly catchy. It was done in one take. When they finished, the energy in the studio was ecstatic. They had captured the feeling of a live performance, the spontaneous joy of a gospel meeting. There was no need to try and replicate it. It was a perfect moment. The resulting track is one of the most exciting and energetic on the His Hand in Mine album. It's a powerful demonstration of Elvis's ability to transform a traditional song into something that was uniquely his own. That one take captured not just the notes and the words, but the very spirit of the music that had been his foundation since he was a child. Number 5, How Do You Follow Up the Biggest Song of Your Career? Stuck on You, Elvis's first post-Army single, was recorded in a single take just 2 days after he was officially discharged from the military. The pressure was immense to prove he was still relevant, and he delivered a confident, relaxed performance that immediately shot to number 1, calming the nerves of his record label and his fans. What's it like to have the entire music world waiting for your next move? On March 20th, 1960, Elvis Presley was back at RCA Studio B in Nashville. He had been out of the Army for just a couple of days. The world had changed in the 2 years he was gone. New teen idols had emerged. Rock and roll had softened. The big question was, could Elvis still connect with his audience? RCA was taking no chances. They had booked the studio, hired the best musicians, and were ready to record his comeback single. The song chosen was Stuck on You, written by Aaron Schroeder and J. Leslie McFarland. It was a mid-tempo, catchy pop song with a bit of a rock and roll feel. It was safe, but it was also a perfect vehicle for his return. The atmosphere in the studio was tense. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. Elvis walked in, looking fit and healthy in his civilian clothes. He greeted the musicians, many of whom were old friends. He was calm, professional. He listened to the demo, learned the song, and then got ready to record. He stood at the microphone, the tape rolled. He sang the song with an easy, confident swagger. His voice had matured. It was deeper, richer than it had been before the Army. The performance was smooth, polished, and incredibly charming. He wasn't the rebellious kid from the 50s anymore. He was a 25-year-old man, a global superstar in complete command of his talent. The band was flawless. The Jordanaires' backing vocals were perfect. The whole thing came together beautifully. One take. After the final note, there was a sense of relief and excitement in the control room. He had done it. He hadn't lost a step. Stuck on You was rushed into production. It was in stores just a few days later. It shot to #1 on the Billboard charts and stayed there for 4 weeks. It was the answer everyone was looking for. Elvis was back, and he was bigger than ever. That one-take performance, recorded under the most intense pressure of his career, was a calm, confident statement that his reign as the king was far from over. #4, Can You Be Paralyzed by Rock and Roll? Paralyzed, a rollicking, piano-driven song, was recorded in a single take on September 2nd, 1956, at Radio Recorders. The song was co-written by Elvis and Otis Blackwell, though Elvis took a songwriting credit without contributing to the lyrics or music, a common practice for him at the time. The track features a frantic energy that was captured perfectly on the first try. Sometimes the energy is so high you just have to let the tape roll. In the fall of 1956, Elvis was the biggest star in the world and the most controversial. His every move was scrutinized. He was in the middle of a creative whirlwind, recording dozens of songs. The sessions at Radio Recorders in Hollywood were fast and productive. On September 2nd, they had a new song from Otis Blackwell, the writer of Don't Be Cruel and All Shook Up. It was called Paralyzed. It was another classic Blackwell tune, full of clever lyrics about being love-struck and a rhythm that was impossible to stand still to. Elvis took a co-writing credit, a deal he often had with his publisher. The song was driven by the piano, played by Elvis himself in his signature percussive style. He pounded the keys, setting a frantic pace. The band, Scotty, Bill, and DJ jumped in. The song was pure, distilled rock and roll energy. They ran it down once, and then it was time to record. The red light went on. Elvis started hammering the piano and singing with a wild, almost breathless abandon. His voice was full of yelps and stutters, perfectly conveying the feeling of being paralyzed by a kiss. The performance was chaotic, joyful, and completely infectious. It sounded like it was about to fly off the rails at any moment, but somehow it all held together. It was a perfect first take. The raw energy and spontaneity were exactly what the song needed. Doing it again would have only tamed it. They knew they had captured the magic on the first try. Interestingly, Paralyzed was not released as a single in the United States. It was an album track on his second LP, Elvis. In the UK, however, it was released as a single and became a top 10 hit. It remains a fan favorite, a one-take wonder that showcases Elvis at his most joyfully frantic, a young king who could create a classic in the time it took to play the song once. #3, How Do You Make Italy Sound Like Nashville? Surrender, a powerful ballad based on the Italian song Torna a Sorrento, was recorded in a single dramatic take. Session on October 30th, 1960 was the same one that produced the gospel classic His Hand in Mine. Elvis struggled with the song's powerful high note, but nailed it perfectly on the master take, creating one of his most impressive vocal performances. How do you turn a 60-year-old Italian folk song into a #1 rock and roll hit? That was the challenge Elvis faced with Surrender. The song was an adaptation of a Neapolitan classic, Torna a Sorrento. New English lyrics were written by Doc Pomus and Mort Schumann, the team that also wrote Viva Las Vegas and Suspicion. The song they created was a passionate, dramatic ballad that built to a massive, soaring climax. The recording took place at RCA Studio B in Nashville. Elvis was in a gospel mood, having just recorded a number of tracks for his Hand in Mine album, but he was ready to tackle the secular powerhouse. The arrangement was big and bold, with a martial drum beat and a full orchestral feel. The problem was the ending. The song required Elvis to hit and hold a powerful high note, a real test of his vocal range and control. In the rehearsals, he was struggling with it. He wasn't quite getting the power and sustain he wanted. The band was getting tight, but the crucial final note was elusive. They decided to go for a take. The tape rolled. Elvis sang the song with a huge amount of passion and drama. He built the intensity verse by verse. The band swelled behind him. Then came the moment of truth. He took a deep breath and went for the high note. He nailed it. It was powerful, clear, and held for what seemed like an eternity. It was a stunning display of vocal power. The song crashed to its conclusion. It was a single, perfect take. Everyone in the studio knew they had just witnessed something special. There was no need to try it again. He had left everything he had on that performance. Surrender was released in February 1961. It went straight to #1 in the US and the UK. It was a massive global hit, and it remains one of his most impressive vocal achievements. That one take, where he conquered the difficult ending, resulted in a recording that was pure drama and a testament to his incredible vocal talent. #2, Can You Feel a Song by Lying on the Floor? Dirty, Dirty Feeling, a gritty rock and roll track featured in the film King Creole, was recorded in a single take. During the session, Elvis was reportedly so into the swampy, bluesy feel of the song that he ended up singing part of the take while lying on his back on the studio floor, a move that surprised the seasoned session musicians. Sometimes you have to get on the floor to find the right feeling. In January 1958, Elvis was at Radio Recorders in Hollywood recording the soundtrack for his best film, King Creole. The movie was set in New Orleans, and the music needed to have a gritty, bluesy bayou feel. The songs were written by the great team of Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. One of the tracks was Dirty, Dirty Feeling. It was a low-down, swampy rocker with a churning rhythm and suggestive lyrics. It was the kind of raw, slightly dangerous song that Elvis excelled at. The band for the King Creole sessions was a mix of his regular players and top-notch Hollywood session musicians. The mood in the studio was professional but loose. Elvis was deeply engaged in the music, feeling a real connection to the New Orleans sound. When it came time to record Dirty, Dirty Feeling, Elvis was trying to find the right physical posture to get the vocal to sound as lazy and greasy as the music. He was moving around the microphone, trying different things. Then, as the band kicked into the groove, he did something no one expected. He lay down on the floor, on his back, and started singing into the microphone from there. The musicians were stunned, but kept playing. The engineers in the control room couldn't believe what they were seeing, but it worked. Lying on the floor, Elvis's voice took on a different quality. It was more relaxed, more guttural. He was able to get the low bluesy moan that the song required. The take was raw, powerful, and full of atmosphere. It was one take. When the song was over, he got up, brushed himself off, and went into the control room to listen. It was perfect. The sound was exactly what he was looking for. His unconventional method had paid off. That one take, with the king of rock and roll singing on his back, became the master. It's a standout track on the King Creole soundtrack, a piece of authentic, gritty rock and roll. It's a story that shows his deep physical connection to the music. He wasn't just singing the songs, he was inhabiting them, doing whatever it took to find their truth, even if it meant lying on the floor. #1 was The First Time, The Only Time. It's Now or Never, one of the best-selling singles of all time, was recorded in a single, perfect take. The song is based on the Italian classic O Sole Mio, and Elvis's powerful operatic vocal performance was so definitive that no further attempts were needed. The session took place in the same early morning hours as Are You Lonesome Tonight? Can you create a global phenomenon in 3 minutes? In the early hours of April 4th, 1960, at RCA Studio B, after recording the intimate Are You Lonesome Tonight, the mood shifted. Elvis wanted to record a song he had first heard while he was in the army in Germany. It was an English-language version of the famous Neapolitan song O Sole Mio. The new lyrics were written by Aaron Schroeder and Wally Gold, and the new title was It's Now or Never. The song was a massive vocal challenge. It required a pop singer to deliver a performance with the power and range of an opera tenor. It was a fusion of styles that no one had really attempted before on such a grand scale. The arrangement was big and dramatic, with a bolero rhythm that built to a huge operatic climax. And Elvis had been practicing the song. He was a huge fan of opera singers like Mario Lanza, and he wanted to prove that he had the vocal chops to sing in that style. The band ran through the arrangement. The musicians were the A-Team of Nashville, and they created a lush, powerful backing track. And then it was time. The lights were still low. The atmosphere was focused. The tape rolled. Elvis stood at the microphone and delivered one of the greatest vocal performances of his career. His voice was rich and resonant in the lower registers, and then it soared effortlessly to the high notes. He sang with a passion and a technical skill that stunned everyone in the studio. He came to the song's famous ending, a powerful, sustained high G sharp. He hit it perfectly. It was a note that would give a trained opera singer pause, and he delivered it with a pop singer's swagger and a tenor's power. The song ended. There was a moment of awed silence. Then the control room erupted. It was a single take. It was flawless. It was a masterpiece. Producer Steve Scholes knew there was absolutely no point in trying it again. They could work all night and never top the magic they had just captured. It's Now or Never was released in July 1960. It was an immediate worldwide sensation. It sold over 20 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling physical singles of all time. It was a #1 hit in countries all over the globe. That one take, recorded in the middle of the night in Nashville, didn't just relaunch his career after the army, it transformed it. It showed the world that he was not just a rock and roller, he was one of the greatest vocalists of the 20th century, capable of creating a timeless masterpiece in a single, breathtaking moment.